This is Environmental Science 1, Chapter 4 on Kinds of Ecosystems. In Part 2 of this video lecture, we will be taking a look at and discussing different types of grassland biomes. Now remember, each biome is at its location on the planet because of two things. One of those things being average yearly temperatures, and the other is your average yearly precipitation. Grasslands will have warmer temperatures and be a little bit on the dry side. They are found anywhere from 15 to 20 degrees north and south of the equator. Often grasslands are kind of on the border outside edge of the cross between our tropical rainforest biome. As it starts to get drier and drier, then we can kind of venture into a grassland biome. Different types of plant adaptations that are in grasslands. They have very large root systems that reach far, far underground. And there is a few reasons for that. One is because the limited amount of precipitation, those roots can in some cases get down very deep into the soil where they can use some of the moisture within the soil, not necessarily standing water, to suck up their roots as a water source. Also, in case of a natural grassland fire, if they have a very deep underground root system, then they can regrow much faster. Also, the soil helps plants survive with their large root system. So again, the moisture that's down in the further reaches of the soil profile can be accessed. Grasses in grasslands have vertical leaves, so they stick straight up and down, and that way they conserve water. If there is a minimal amount of sunlight that is penetrating the grass surface, that way they don't have the water evaporating from inside of their leaves, so they can conserve water. Also, another adaptation for grassland plants and shrubs, a lot of them tend to have very sharp leaves. The sharper the leaves may deter different herbivores from nibbling on those leaves. Animal adaptations in the grassland. There are many grazing animals, of course, being that there is plenty of grass. So they are migratory. So in grasslands, there are kind of it's the rainy season and the dry season. And so grazing animals will migrate and follow the rain. And of course, if we have some grazing herbivores, then more than likely we will have some carnivores and omnivores that will be following them. Animals in the grasslands tend to give birth during the rainy season in the springtime, which makes sense because after a rainy season, there's lots of plentiful resources. Namely, the grass kind of does a little bit of rebounding. Different plants and shrubs will flower and bloom and perhaps set seed or set their fruit. So there's lots of resources after the rain for the little offspring that are recently born. Temperate grasslands are found in a lot of different biomes, kind of within other biomes. You can think of around in this part of the world, the temperate grasslands would be like Kansas and Nebraska, the very flat plains with a lot of tall grasses. They have the most fertile soil of any biome, which is why in recent human development we have taken out the grasslands and replaced them with farmland for agriculture. Prairie fires, natural prairie fires, occur very often due to either heat lightning strikes when the weather is very dry, or due to lightning strikes before a thunderstorm. Again, in a prairie or a temperate grassland, there's going to be a little less precipitation than normal, so they also have very dense root systems that go far underground. So the amount of rainfall will determine the types of grasses that are growing in the prairie and how tall they will get. In the temperate grasslands, temperate means that you're going to have some seasonal changes. And so animals have to adapt to those seasonal changes. Many large mammals will grow thicker coats in the winter for a little bit of extra protection from the cold. Small mammals will take the dormancy or the hibernation route and burrow underground during the cold season. Threats to the grasslands, cultivation from grassland into farmland, which has been done in a lot of different temperate grassland biomes in the United States. Overgrazing by cattle is another problem. And once the grass is gone, which will expose the soil, and in many areas of grasslands, there are kind of flat plains as far as the eye can see. So there isn't a lot to block that wind or rain when that happens. So soil erosion can also become a very huge problem in the temperate grasslands. Deserts. Here we are going to have a very dry environment. Deserts are found in a lot of different places. They are in a very wide band of 15 to 35 degrees north latitude. Technically, an area is a desert if they receive less than 25 centimeters of rain per year. The soil actually in deserts is fairly nutrient rich. There's lots of phosphorus and potassium and nitrogen in the soil, but there's very little organic matter in the soil. In order for plants to survive in areas where the temperatures year-round tend to be very warm and the precipitation levels on the dry side, they have adapted ways to store water within the plant. Many plants that live in a desert are of the cacti variety or a succulent plant. Cactus have very thick and fleshy stems and leaves, and they store water. And those spines and needles are there for a reason. They will deter herbivores from nibbling on different parts of the plant, or at least some herbivores. In the desert, instead of roots going deep underground, root systems in desert plants are spread out near the surface. Rain doesn't happen very often in deserts, so when it does, those plants have to be ready for it. The soaking in rate of precipitation in desert areas happens very fast. So this way the plants can catch as much precipitation as they possibly can. Many plants in the desert, of course, are drought resistant. So they have that ability to survive in areas with very little or sporadic rainfall. When the desert does bloom after a rain, it looks like a completely different place. But many plants will wait to set their seed until after a rainstorm. And the pollinators, of course, the insects and other animals that help the pollination process, of course, come out after the rainstorm as well for those new resources that have sprung up due to the rain. Some animal adaptations for those critters that live out in the desert. Reptiles have very dry and scaly skin. This way they can prevent water loss from inside their body. Most reptiles are ectothermic, which means their body temperature is roughly the same temperature as the area around them. So they will control their body temperature by going out in the sun to get a little bit warm, and then they'll hide in the shade when it gets too warm. That way, again, they can conserve water. Many mammals that live out in the desert are nocturnal, which means they are active at night as opposed to the daytime. Being that temperatures are lower at night, so mammals can spend energy on things like hunting and finding food without having to worry about dehydration in the process. The tundra is another type of grassland. This is a very frozen type of grassland. It's near the Arctic Circle. There's very few trees. We have mostly a lot of stubby little shrubs and short-leaved grasses. The summers in the tundra are very, very short. perhaps maybe a little over a month or so. There are very long, severe winters. And in many places in the tundra, if you dig down in the soil far enough, you will reach what's called the permafrost. And that is soil that's permanently frozen year-round. And because in places where there is permafrost, we can't have plant roots growing into ice, so the adaptations of plants that live in the tundra, because of the very thin soil, they will have a shallow root system that spreads out very widely. Also, that will help them anchor against the wind. Because there's very few trees in the tundra, the wind shear, if plants aren't anchored properly, the plants will blow away. Even though there is a short summer, it's a very active place in the tundra when it is summer. The plants will take advantage by growing very quickly, which of course will bring in the herbivores to the area. And if there are herbivores, the carnivores and omnivores are soon to follow. The tundra is used for kind of a pit stop in a lot of different animal migration patterns. Migratory birds will breed in the tundra in the very short season of the summertime. Grazing animals like caribou and reindeer will follow vegetation. So as the season warms up and cools down, they will follow wherever the most grass is. This has been Environmental Science 1, Chapter 4, Part 2 on kinds of ecosystems.